And now, please welcome our panelists, Abigail, Carlton, and Kress, and our moderator, Gerald, Chertavian.
Fantastic. Good afternoon to you all, and thank you for allowing us to share this day together, to learn, to be inspired, to connect with one another. My name is Gerald Chertavian. I'm the founder and CEO of Year Up, which is a national nonprofit organization that moves low-income young adults from poverty to a professional career. I'm certainly excited today to have an opportunity to share and host a conversation with two of our nation's leaders in the goal of moving young adults and others into economic opportunity. Ann Kress, to my left, is the president of Monroe Community College, one of the true exemplars and innovators in linking education to economic opportunity. Ann, thank you for being here. And to her left, Abby Carlton, who you heard from earlier today, is the managing director of Rockefeller Foundation and leads their U.S. efforts to, and I wrote this down specifically, to expand economic opportunity and create inclusive markets. It's a really important word when we think about this, because the context here is that we have labor markets in this country that aren't working. Right? The markets themselves aren't working, and it is unfortunately affecting our citizens as well as affecting our businesses in a pretty significant way. Those markets aren't working specifically for many of our low-income young adults. It's a problem of supply and demand. Those markets aren't clearing, and it's a challenge that represents trillions of dollars, not billions. It's a country that needs solutions in the trillions. This is actually an area where the opportunity of getting it right can be measured in trillions. It's also a place where the opportunity, I believe, is perhaps one of the greatest civil rights opportunities of our time, is to actually get this right. So with that as a context, Ann, if it's okay if I can start with you, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the things you're doing at Monroe to increase and expand those pathways and linkages between education and the economy?
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Monroe Community College is in Rochester, New York. If you're from New York City, it's the part of New York State you think of as Canada. So we're about an hour from Syracuse and from Buffalo on either side. It's an urban environment. And what we see with youth, honestly, in our community is that the largest percentage of our youth come from the city of Rochester, which has had a perennially struggling school district. So what does that mean? Well, at MCC, we believe that the nation that we make needs to provide opportunity for the full diversity of our community to find a pathway to prosperity. And what we see is too often, young people don't even understand the careers and the opportunities that are out there and what those careers could mean for them personally and economically. And just to give you a data point, the average baccalaureate degree will add about $1 million over lifetime earnings to students. That's a lot of money. But at MCC, we have 1-year and 2-year associate degrees in career and technical education that will add over $500,000 in lifetime earnings. So for a year, you might end up with a degree or a certificate where you could walk away and earn an additional $750,000 to $800,000 over your lifetime. That's better than going out and buying your Powerball ticket, I'll tell you that right now. And so when we look at pathways like automotive technology, and we look at great partners like Toyota and GM, and we see the investment that they're willing to make in the institution, cars, training, curriculum, advisory board members, paid internships and apprenticeships for students in our automotive tech program. And we see what we can do when we can link young people to that opportunity, how it's life-changing for them, potentially for any children that they might have, for the families that they're part of, for the neighborhoods that they grow up in. We're delighted to build those connections between business and industry and community colleges because it benefits all of you.
Great, thank you, Ann. And Abby, is someone who's working at Rockefeller with many of the businesses that are seeking to work with opportunity youth. What are you learning at Rockefeller, Abby, around what's working, best practices, challenges? What are the lessons you're starting to cull out of that work?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the really encouraging things, and it was brought to life here in the last couple of folks we've seen up on the stage, is that in the last couple of years we are seeing businesses come to this conversation in what feels like a really different way. So it isn't as advisors to folks who are working on education or training, but it's as leaders who are thinking about how youth employment is a business issue. And it is. And this, we heard about it today from Gap. It's a pipeline issue. From Walmart, it's about frontline manager training. And these are core business practices. And I think that's just a really different type of conversation than we've heard in the past. And we're starting to see employers come together around this. Rodney mentioned the 100,000 Opportunities Coalition. There are now 50 employers who are members of that coalition who are participating in events where young people are getting hired in the thousands, but also, and I think equally importantly, having conversations and learning from each other about some of the types of best practices that are starting to emerge that we heard about today.
That's great, thank you. Ann, how do you get a community college to speak corporate?
Well, I think you really look at what are we? We are community colleges. That means we're the community's college. And so in reality, our goal is to link everyone in our community, whether it's a 38-year-old student or an 18-year-old student, to opportunity. That flows through employment. It's as simple as that. And so when you work with programs that already have some of those connections and you strengthen them through investment, I'll give you just a real quick example. If I were to say to this room, what is optics? Because optics is a big business in our region. You would likely look at my glasses and think, well, somebody who worked in optics made your glasses. And you would hopefully also think, and they're really awesome. But what it is it's the science of light. And so what we found was that too many young people didn't know about the incredible career opportunities that were in optics. Our program was shrinking. Our faculty had a motivation to work with Corning Incorporated Foundation to invest, at this point, well over $1 million in our program to help that program grow and to inform students about the opportunities. And lo and behold, suddenly there's enrollment in the classes. It's a win-win-win. Those students can go out and earn, upwards of $50,000 a year, or they can go on and transfer and go on to get a doctorate in optics. I mean, this is exactly what we're talking about, this collaboration end on end. And by the way, we also now have optics dual enrollment in local high schools with equipment that's been funded by the businesses because they know they can't survive, they can't thrive, they can't grow without that youth pipeline, the incredible talent that's out here coming through those programs and into their workplaces.
That's fantastic, thank you. Abby, Governor Patrick this morning said that we shouldn't be letting business off the hook. And while business clearly is a big part of the solution here, they also at times can be part of the problem. So what does business need to do differently to engage with young people, to engage with community colleges? How does business practice have to change from what you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are not going to be able to tackle this problem at anywhere near the scale that is required unless business is out in front on this. And that means looking with a magnifying glass at some existing practices and where there might be places where current practices are getting in the way. So an example, I think Judith McKenna was saying this question of how we hire. So you look at traditional ways that candidates are selected. I think each of us, if we look back to our first job, we might not get that job if we applied for it again today because there are job descriptions that are screening out a lot of young people who might be a great fit for a job. There are sort of unstructured interviews and a strong reliance on traditional resumes that are, again, another barrier and actually often aren't a great predictor of who's going to be a good fit for a job. So that's an area where we're seeing a lot of innovation. We're seeing approaches around competency-based hiring, skills-based hiring, where you can actually tell a different kind of story about who can be a good fit for a job, who's going to actually perform better on a job, and it might not be about some of the things that we've been putting in the foreground. So I think that's just one type of example where we've seen some progress, and hopefully we'll see more.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And maybe, Ann, we have time just for one more question is, the community college system at large perhaps isn't performing up to its potential across the country. You get to wave a magic wand.
Yeah.
What at large do community colleges need to do most to be the most effective providers and developers of human capital?
Sure. I'd always say more money. But I think the other thing we need is we need to be better collaborators. We need to know when to reach out to business and industry. I know Christy Reeves is here from Single Stop. We need to know how to partner with local agencies to support our students. I will tell you, the students who walk away from MCC often have very solid GPAs. They're strong academically. They have lots of life challenges that disrupt their everyday life over and over and over again in so many ways that we can't count. We need to be able to partner, and we need to know we can count on our partners to support our students, to support our incredibly talented youth through the challenges that they face, because quite frankly, our future depends on it.
Thank you very much. Folks, would you give us a round of applause for our two leaders today? Thank you very much, Abby and Ann, and appreciate you being with us. Very much appreciate the work you're doing for all of us citizens to increase educational and economic opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.